Fresh boot prints circled the ancient cottonwood, accompanied by the unmistakable spatter of dried blood on snow. Kael bear killer, crouched fingers hovering above the crimson stains. 3 men, white men's boots, and something dragged no someone. His nostrils flared at the copper scent still lingering despite the bitter Dakota wind. Thomas Miller had been brought here to die beneath the very tree where they had once sworn brotherhood, on a defiling sacred ground. Kael whispered, his calloused hand now pressing against the scarred trunk of what his people called the falling star tree. 15 winters ago, beneath these gnarled branches, he and Thomas had clasped bleeding palms together under a harvest moon. By the spirits that watch from above and below, they had vowed in unison, one voice Lakota, one white, but equally reverent. Your blood is my blood. Your children are my children, until the stars fall from the sky. Now Thomas's blood soaked the frozen earth his body disposed of, and elsewhere his killer's arrogance evident in their careless tracks. Kael's weathered hands gripped the worn wooden handle of his shovel knuckles, white with strain, as he dug a symbolic grave beneath the witness tree. The bitter wind carried the scent of smoke from a distant pyre. Thomas's remains, Kael had been told by a sympathetic traitor, burned by the mob after their butchery was complete. At 42, Kael Bear Killer wore his scars like sacred text, each mark on his copper skin, a testament to battles against cavalry soldiers and the unforgiving elements alike. The ritual markings across his chest and arms told stories most white men feared to read, but the invisible scars weighed heaviest memories of his slaughtered wife and son, their bodies twisted among the ashes of his village 5 winters past. As he lowered Thomas's silver pocket watch and 6 locks of hair, one from each daughter, into the symbolic grave, something primal rose in Kael's chest. Not just grief, but the ancient rage of a warrior confronting yet another injustice, in a land increasingly hostile to his existence. The ghosts have grown too numerous, my brother, he said, his deep voice breaking. But I will not let yours wander restless. Your daughters will live. This I swear by the blood we have shared. He pressed his palm against the cottonwood's scarred trunk, feeling life pulse beneath the same tree that had witnessed their brotherhood would now witness his renewed oath. Then he mounted his painted stallion and turned toward Dry Creek Station, where 6 orphaned girls awaited a protector they had never met. Dawn broke like a bruise over Dry Creek Station, spilling sickly light across weathered buildings that cowered beneath the vast prairie sky. The settlement had sprung up too fast during the gold rush, a place where fortunes were made not from honest toil, but from the exploitation of desperation and manufactured vices. The mud-slick main street stirred with early activity, as Kael rode in his Lakota braids and traditional dress, drawing hostile stares like flies to carry on. Indian trouble coming, a man muttered deliberately loud enough for Kael to hear. And that's Bear Killer. Another whispered undisguised fear sharpening his words. Took 30 cavalry scalps at Little Thunder Creek, drinks their blood under the full moon. Kael ignored them, obsidian eyes fixed on a dilapidated cabin at the settlement's edge. Thomas's last letter had described it as temporary lodging, until he could build something worthy on his homestead. 3 buildings dominated Dry Creek Station, and the general store, a white church, whose steeple seemed to mock the godlessness thriving below, and the Sweet Promise Saloon, its elaborate facade gleaming with fresh paint, testament to its prosperity amid the town's general decay. The saloon belonged to Vincent Crawley, the town's de facto authority. Thomas's final letter had revealed the true source of Crawley's wealth, not just liquor and gambling, but the most profitable merchandise of all human flesh. Young flesh. Kael dismounted before the Miller cabin, its door hanging askew on broken hinges. The windows were boarded from inside, a desperate attempt at security that spoke volumes about the terror within. "Step away, Injun, unless you want buckshot scrambling your brains," came a small, fierce voice from within. "I come at your father's request, little one." Kael replied calmly. I am Kael Bear Killer, his sworn brother. After a pause, the door creaked open just enough to reveal a pale face framed by tangled blonde hair. Dark circles underscored blue eyes that had witnessed too much for their 10 years. This would be Samantha Sam Thomas's eldest. Pa said you might come. Said you were the best man he ever knew. Suspicion lingered in her voice, sharp as winter ice. Prove you're him. Kael reached slowly into his medicine pouch and withdrew a carved wooden wolf. Your father wrote that Ruth sleeps with this beneath her pillow to keep nightmares away. That's not Ruth. That's Lily the baby. Sam corrected, her voice catching. Ruth's the second oldest. She's 8. Despite her correction, the door opened fully. Inside, 5 more pairs of eyes watched him from the shadows. They huddled together on a straw mattress in the corner, pale, trembling girls ranging from Lily at 4 to Ruth at 8. Between them were the twins, Mary and Martha, both 6- and 7-year-old Hannah. Their clothing was threadbare but clean, their hair neatly braided despite everything. They killed Pa yesterday. Sam said, her voice flat with shock. Dragged him out, beat him, said he stole land that wasn't his to claim, said he forged papers. Her small hands balled into fists. Liars. Pa showed me the deed. Had it proper from the land office in Yankton. Your father was an honest man. Fat lot of good it did him. Sam spat, then immediately looked ashamed. Sorry. Pa wouldn't like me talking that way. Said bitterness poisoned the heart faster than arsenic. The cabin's interior told its own story of desperation. An overturned table shattered crockery windows boarded with planks pulled from the children's bed frame. A thin stew bubbled in the iron pot, barely enough to feed 1 child, let alone 6. Lily suddenly broke from the group and ran to Kael, wrapping her arms around his leg. Are you going to save us like Pa said you would? Before Kael could answer, Sam pulled her sister back. Don't be stupid, Lily. Nobody's saving us. They're coming back tonight. Heard them say so. She turned accusatory eyes on Kael. You came too late. They'll take us to the orphan train if we're lucky. If not, she swallowed hard, unable to complete the thought no child should ever contemplate. No one will take you, Kael stated with quiet certainty. I have sworn it. Ruth stepped forward, then her features sharper than her elder sister's, her eyes calculating. 1 man against the whole town, even if you are the great bear killer. A warrior does not need numbers to keep his word. Kael replied. Mary, or perhaps Martha, the twins, were identical down to their freckles, spoke up. Pa said you could talk to wolves and disappear into thin air when soldiers come looking. Despite everything, the ghost of a smile touched Kael's lips. Your father always had a gift for stories. Sam wasn't impressed. We don't need stories. We need food. And Pa back. Her voice broke on the last word. I cannot restore the dead to life, Kael said gently. But I can honor your father's memory by protecting what he loved most. He reached into his saddlebag and produced dried buffalo meat and corn cakes. Eat. Then we will prepare. As the girls fell upon the food with desperate hunger, Kael assessed the cabin, the broken lock, the damaged door, the single exit that made the place a potential death trap. Through the cracks in the boarded window, he could see curious townspeople gathering, watching like vultures, circling dying prey. Why did they kill him? Kael asked once the girls had eaten. Mr. Crawley wants our land. Pa's homestead has the best water for miles, 3 natural springs that never go dry. Plus, it's on the stage route. Sam wiped her mouth with a grimy sleeve. Crawley offered to buy it. Pa refused. Is that all? Kael's instincts told him there was more. Ruth answered, her voice steady but quiet. Pa found out about the girls Mr. Crawley keeps in the back rooms, young ones like us. Heard him talking to the sheriff about it. And something else. Sam added, her voice dropping to a whisper. Pa found papers. in the land office when he was filing our deed. Said they proved men in the territorial government were getting rich off selling girls to places far away. He hid the papers somewhere safe. Kael's expression hardened. Thomas's last letter now made terrible sense, his cryptic references to a trade in innocence. He had discovered how the local law was corrupted, how the threat reached to the highest levels. He had been killed not just for his land, but for the evidence he possessed against powerful men. They'll come after dark. Hannah volunteered, suddenly her voice small. 3 men came last night after Pa. Broke our door, took our blankets and Pa's shotgun. Said they'd be back to collect the merchandise. She spoke the last words with confusion, not understanding their full meaning. Cold fury rose in Kael, a familiar companion from his fighting days. But he forced it down. Anger clouded judgment, and these girls needed clear thinking now. He said, turning to the eldest, "What would your father want most right now?" The girl straightened her thin shoulders. "He'd want us safe, together. He made us promise never to be separated no matter what. And that is what we shall do. But not here. This place is too easy to surround." "The homestead," Ruth suggested quickly. "It's built against the rock face, only one way in. And Pa dug a root cellar that goes into the hillside," Sam added. "We could hide there if needed." "Good." Kael moved to the door, checking the position of the sun. "We have perhaps 5 hours until sunset. Gather only what cannot be replaced." As the girls collected their meager treasures, Kael slipped outside to prepare horses. His stallion Wind Dancer would carry the youngest. For the others, he needed to find mounts. The curious onlookers scattered as he emerged, but not before he caught the calculated gaze of a well-dressed man standing before the saloon. Vincent Crawley, no doubt. Beside him stood a figure that made Kael's blood run cold, a Lakota man in white man's clothing, his hair cut short, his face marked with the same tribal scars that Kael bore. Black Fox. Once a proud warrior of the Oglala band, now rumored to hunt his own people for bounty. Their eyes met across the distance, recognition flashing between them like summer lightning. Black Fox smiled coldly and tipped his hat in mocking greeting before following Crawley back into the saloon. "You can't hide them, old friend," he called in Lakota, his voice carrying through the street's sudden silence. "Not from me. I can smell the Miller blood on you already." By mid-afternoon, Kael had managed to trade his silver armbands for 2 sturdy ponies from a reluctant livery owner. He had also purchased supplies, flour, salt, ammunition for the old revolver he found beneath a floorboard in the cabin. They were nearly ready when Hannah, keeping watch at the boarded window, suddenly gasped. "Riders coming, lots of them." Kael moved swiftly to her side. A group of at least 8 men approached on horseback, Crawley and Black Fox in the lead. "Too soon," Kael muttered. Someone must have informed Crawley of their preparations. "Girls, quickly, into the back room." "There's no way out from there," Sam protested. "Do as I say," Kael commanded, his voice leaving no room for argument. As the girls retreated, Kael positioned himself beside the door, hunting knife in one hand, his gnarled wooden war club in the other. He had hoped to avoid confrontation in town, to spirit the girls away to the relative safety of the homestead. Now he would have to fight on unfavorable ground. The riders halted before the cabin. Crawley's voice rang out smooth as honey and cold as a snake's gaze. "The Miller girls, I've come with the town council's decision about your situation. We mean you no harm." Sam snorted softly from the back room. Even the youngest girls knew better than to believe such obvious lies. "The council has determined that minors can't legally hold title to homestead claims." Crawley continued when no response came. "As the town's leading citizen, I've been appointed guardian for you girls until suitable arrangements can be made." Kael remained silent, calculating. 8 men outside, possibly more, watching from other buildings. The odds were poor. Now we know you've got that Indian troublemaker in there. Crawley's voice hardened, dropping its pretense of civility. He's got no legal standing here. If he leaves now, nobody needs to get hurt. The girls will be well cared for, I promise you. Kael made his decision. He moved to the back room where the girls huddled. Listen carefully, he whispered. When the shooting starts, slip out through the root cellar. Sam knows where the horses are tethered behind the smithy. Ride for your homestead. Do not wait for me. You promised to protect us. Ruth accused, her young face fierce with betrayal. I am not fighting. I am buying time. Kael pressed the revolver into Sam's hands. 6 bullets. Use them only if you have no choice. Before they could protest further, Kael returned to the main room and pulled the door open. He stepped onto the porch, weaponless hands open at his sides, in the universal gesture of peace. The assembled men tensed, several raising rifles. Crawley, mounted on a gleaming black stallion, smiled thinly. Well, if it isn't the famous bear killer. His tone was conversational, almost friendly, but his eyes remained cold as river stones. Long way from your hunting grounds, aren't you? I go where I am needed, Kael replied simply. Black Fox translated Kael's words deliberately, mistranslating to make them sound threatening. He says this is Lakota land, and you have no right to be here. What my associate means, Crawley said with feigned regret, is that you're interfering in official town business. Those girls are now wards of the territory. They are the daughters of Thomas Miller, Kael stated. He named me their protector in the event of his death. A murmur ran through the gathered men. Any such arrangement would need to be documented legally. Crawley recovered quickly. And no court would recognize the guardianship claim of a man of your race. I do not recognize your authority over these children, Kael said calmly. Nor did your mob have authority to murder their father. Crawley's face darkened. Miller died resisting arrest for land fraud and sedition. The marshal has already ruled it justifiable. Well, what marshal? Kael asked. The nearest federal marshal is 2 days' ride from here. The children Crawley, Black Fox, interrupted impatiently. Stop playing with him and take them. You know what those buyers in Dakota City will pay for 6 sisters together. A flicker of annoyance crossed Crawley's face at Black Fox's indiscretion. Boys, he said, his pretense at civility evaporating, take this Indian into custody. The girls too. We'll sort this out properly in town. As the men dismounted and advanced toward the cabin, Kael raised his hand. I invoke the right of parley, as is custom even among your kind. Allow me 1 hour to gather the girls' belongings. Then we will come peacefully. Black Fox laughed harshly. He is stalling Crawley. The girls are probably already slipping away. Crawley's eyes narrowed. Search the back of the cabin, he ordered 2 of his men. Before the men could round the cabin, a commotion erupted on the far side of town. Shouts, then gunfire. Merma, someone yelled. The livery's on fire. Smoke billowed into the sky as flames engulfed the wooden structure. Men ran from all directions, Crawley's group momentarily distracted by the threat to their valuable mounts. Let's go, Crawley ordered several of his men. Save the horses. To the others he barked, watch him. Don't let anyone leave this cabin. In the confusion, Kael glimpsed small figures slipping away behind distant buildings and the Miller girls creating their own diversion. Pride swelled in his chest at their resourcefulness. Black Fox alone seemed unimpressed by the fire. His eyes remained fixed on Kael, a predatory gleam in them. The great bear killer, he said in Lakota. Reduced to protecting white man's spawn. How far you have fallen, old friend. Not as far as one who hunts his own people for gold. Kael replied in the same tongue. You think I do this for gold? Black Fox hissed, true emotion breaking through his controlled exterior. I do this to survive in a world your idealism helped destroy. Your raid at Little Thunder Creek brought the cavalry's vengeance upon our camp. My wife, my sons. While you escaped to the mountains, I buried them with my own hands. The revelation hit Kael like a physical blow. But before he could respond, Black Fox struck with lightning speed the butt of his revolver, connecting with Kael's temple. The world exploded into stars, then darkness. Consciousness returned to Kael in painful fragments. First, the throbbing in his head, then the awareness of bound hands, the rough wooden floor beneath him. Whiskey and smoke filling his nostrils. He kept his eyes closed, gathering information before alerting his captors to his wakefulness. Worth at least 200 each to the right buyer in Dakota City, Crawley was saying. The oldest and the spirited one will fetch twice that. The little one's too young yet, but give her a year or two of training. And the Indian, another voice unfamiliar. Black Fox wants him alive. Some old tribal score to settle. Crawley laughed, the sound like rocks scraping together. Says he'll waive what I owe him in exchange for the pleasure of killing bear killers slow. You sure those girls are headed to the homestead? It's getting dark. They won't deviate, Crawley said confidently. Black Fox says they're too scared, too predictable. They'll run straight to the only other place they know. Opening his eyes a fraction, Kael found himself in what appeared to be Crawley's office at the back of the saloon. Through the partially open door, he could see the main room men drinking, gambling, a piano, playing somewhere out of sight. Crawley stood with his back to him, speaking to a heavy-set man with a sheriff's badge. His weapons were gone, his medicine pouch taken. His wrists were bound behind his back, with rope that cut into his skin, Black Fox's work expertly tied. The traitor remembered his training well. How long until Black Fox reaches them? The sheriff asked, nervousness evident in his fidgeting hands. He left an hour ago with 4 men. Should catch up to them before they reach the homestead. Crawley poured himself a drink. By morning, this whole unpleasant business will be concluded. And Miller's body, already weighted and in the river. No one will find him. Crawley sipped his whiskey. Once I have the deed to that land, and those documents he stole, Dry Creek Station will become a proper stop on the stage route. The right people will be very grateful for our discretion. And the girls. Dark collateral benefit. Crawley chuckled, the sound devoid of any human warmth. The freight wagon leaves for Dakota City tomorrow night. They'll be on it. By the time they reach Chicago, no one will remember they ever existed. The casual discussion of children being sold like cattle made Kael's blood boil, but he maintained his facade of unconsciousness. Rage would not help him now. Cunning might. I don't like it, the sheriff said, his voice dropping. Killing Miller was one thing. He was poking into business that wasn't his concern. But trafficking children. Having second thoughts, Sheriff. Crawley's voice took on a dangerous edge. After all we've accomplished, after how far you've come from that tin star in a failing mining camp, remember who made you legitimate. Remember whose secrets you've helped bury. The sheriff fell silent, properly cowed. Besides, Crawley continued, swirling the amber liquid in his glass, these aren't city children from good families. They're frontier mongrels. No mother, father dead, no prospects. His voice dropped to a sinister purr. We're giving them a purpose, a place. Some might even thrive in their new profession. Kael had heard enough. He shifted deliberately, allowing his boot to scrape against the floor. Both men turned. Ah, our guest rejoins us, Crawley said, smiling thinly. I must thank you for the timely distraction you provided. Made it so much easier to seize those troublesome girls. Kael raised his head, meeting Crawley's gaze squarely. If any harm comes to them, neither distance nor time will protect you from my vengeance. I will follow you beyond death itself. The sheriff looked uncomfortable, but Crawley merely laughed. Bold words from a man tied up in my office, but unnecessary. The girls will live long, productive lives under the right guidance. Is that what you tell yourself to sleep at night? Kael asked quietly. That you are not a monster who trades in children's flesh? The smile vanished from Crawley's face. He crossed the room in 3 strides and struck Kael hard across the face with the back of his hand, his heavy rings drawing blood. Watch your tongue, savage. You're alive only because Black Fox wants the pleasure of killing you himself. Kael spat blood onto Crawley's polished boots. Black Fox is a coward who betrayed his people. Like all cowards, he will run when truly tested. Crawley, maybe we should just lock him up until Black Fox returns. The sheriff suggested nervously, his eyes darting between the 2 men. Shut up, Crawley snapped. To Kael, he said, Black Fox told me all about you. How you led the raid that massacred that cavalry patrol 3 years ago. How you personally killed the captain. His eyes narrowed to slits. Did you know that captain was my brother? Your brother led the attack on our village, Kael said evenly. He ordered the killing of women and children, my wife, my son. He was following orders to clear hostile Indians from treaty lands, Crawley retorted. There was no treaty for that land, Kael said. Only paper signed by chiefs you bought with whiskey and false promises. Crawley's face flushed dark with rage. He drew his pistol, pressing the barrel against Kael's forehead. Give me one reason not to end you right now. Vincent, no, the sheriff protested. Black Fox will what the Indians' payment is already settled. What's he going to do, complain to the authorities? Crawley laughed bitterly. He will hunt you, Kael said calmly, showing no fear despite the cold metal against his skin. As I would. Men like us do not forget betrayal. We carry it like a burning coal in our bellies until we can place it in the heart of our enemy. Something in Kael's steady gaze made Crawley hesitate. After a long, tense moment, he lowered the gun. You lock him in the storeroom, he ordered the sheriff. Let Black Fox deal with him when he returns. As the sheriff hauled Kael to his feet, a commotion erupted in the main saloon, raised voices, then the crash of breaking glass. Through the doorway, Kael glimpsed a man staggering in blood, streaming from a wound on his head. They ambushed us, the man gasped. The Indian, he wasn't with the girls. He was waiting, killed Jenkins and Farley. Crawley pushed past the sheriff. What are you talking about? Black Fox left hours ago to track the girls? Not Black Fox, the wounded man managed. Another Indian, huge bastard, came out of nowhere. The canyon walls collapsed, crushed Simmons. Kael kept his face impassive, but inwardly he smiled. The girls had found help, likely one of the Lakota scouts who owed him blood debt. He had sent message birds before coming to Dry Creek, calling in old favors should he need them. Impossible, Crawley snarled. Where's Black Fox now? Don't know. He split from us to circle behind the homestead. Then this other Indian attacked our position. And the girls? Never saw them. We were ambushed before we reached the homestead. Crawley turned slowly to face Kael, suspicion dawning in his eyes. You planned this. Somehow you planned this. Kael said nothing, but his eyes held a gleam that made even the sheriff step back. Get everyone, Crawley ordered the wounded man. Every man who can ride. We leave for the Miller homestead in 10 minutes. To the sheriff he barked, lock him up and post 2 men outside the door. If he escapes, I'll hang you alongside him. As the sheriff dragged him toward the storeroom, Kael caught snippets of hurried conversation. Men being roused from their gambling and drinking, weapons being distributed. Crawley was mobilizing a small army, far more than any Lakota scout, even one of proven fighting skill, could hope to withstand. The girls were still in grave danger, and he was powerless to help them. The storeroom was little more than a closet stacked with liquor boxes and dry goods. The sheriff shoved Kael inside roughly. You've stirred up a hornet's nest, the lawman muttered as he checked Kael's bonds. Crawley won't stop until he has those girls. What kind of lawman protects men who murder fathers and sell daughters? Kael asked quietly. The sheriff wouldn't meet his eyes. You don't understand how things work out here. Crawley owns this town, owns the judges, the territorial officials. He does not own you unless you allow it. Save your Indian philosophy, the sheriff said, but his voice lacked conviction. Some of us have to live in the real world. With that, he closed the door, leaving Kael in darkness. The heavy bolt slid into place outside, followed by the murmur of voices as guards took up positions. Kael immediately began working on his bonds, twisting his wrists to find slack in the rope. Black Fox had tied the knots well, but he had forgotten one detail from their shared past, the bone knife Kael kept sewn into the inside seam of his buckskin shirt, accessible even with bound hands. Through the thin walls, Kael could hear the saloon emptying as Crawley gathered his force. Hoofbeats sounded outside as riders departed. Soon the building grew quieter, with only the occasional clink of glasses or murmur of conversation from the few patrons who remained. His fingers finally located the hidden knife. Carefully, he worked it free and began sawing at his bonds. The blade was small, designed for skinning game, but its edge was razor sharp. Patience would see him free. As the rope began to fray, Kael heard feminine laughter, forced artificial merriment that did not reach the eyes. The sporting women who worked Crawley's establishment. An idea formed in his mind. Within minutes, the rope gave way. Kael flexed his hands, restoring circulation, then moved silently to the door. Pressing his ear against the wood, he heard his guards conversing in low tones. Nos could have been with the posse instead of babysitting a tied-up Indian, one was saying. I'll rather be here than facing whatever killed Jenkins and Farley, the other replied. Heard Jenkins was near cut in half. You believe that probably just fell off his horse drunk as usual? I don't know. There's something about that Indian in there gives me the shivers. They say he can call on spirit demons from the other world. Kael assessed his situation. 2 guards, both armed. No windows, no other exit. He needed a distraction. Gathering several bottles of whiskey from the shelves, he smashed them against the far wall, creating a pool of flammable liquid. Then, using the small flint he always kept in his moccasin, he struck sparks until the alcohol caught fire. Fire help, he cried in alarm. The reaction was immediate. The bolt slid back and the door was flung open as both guards rushed in, momentarily blinded by the transition from lamplight to the gloom of the smoky storeroom. Kael struck with precision, a sharp blow to the first man's throat, silencing any cry for help, and then a sweeping kick that took the second man's legs from under him. Kael quickly extinguished the controlled fire with a sack of flour before it could spread, then relieved the guards of their weapons, 2 revolvers, and a hunting knife. After binding and gagging the men with strips torn from a flour sack, he slipped from the storeroom into a narrow hallway. To his right lay the main saloon, now nearly empty, but still too exposed. To his left, a staircase led to the upper floor, where he presumed Crawley conducted his more discreet business. He needed information before charging blindly after Crawley's posse, exact numbers, armaments, how much of a head start they had. And there might be documents in Crawley's office, proof of his crimes that could be used to bring legitimate law to bear. Kael ascended silently, revolvers ready. At the top, a corridor stretched before him, doors spaced evenly on both sides. From behind, several came sounds that confirmed his suspicions, feminine voices speaking in soft, cajoling tones. To unseen clients, the creak of bed springs, a man's drunken laughter. At the corridor's end stood a more elaborate door. Crawley's private quarters. Kael moved toward it, careful to keep his weight on the edges of the floorboards, where they would be less likely to creak. He was halfway down the hall when a door opened suddenly. A young woman stepped out, barely more than a girl herself, draped in a silk wrapper. She gasped at the sight of him, her hand flying to her mouth. Kael raised a finger to his lips, then pointed the revolver at her, not in threat, but as a silent command for silence. The woman nodded slowly, fear in her eyes. But rather than retreating into her room, she indicated the door at the end of the hall and then held up 3 fingers. 3 men inside. She made a writing motion, then pointed again. Crawley's office where records were kept. She was trying to help him. Kael nodded his thanks. The woman whispered so softly he could barely hear. The girls? Did they get away? Some, he murmured back, understanding now this woman sympathized with the Miller girls, seeing in them a reflection of her own lost innocence. Help them, she pleaded. I was their age when they brought me here, from a farm in Ohio. She retreated into her room, closing the door silently behind her. Kael continued to Crawley's office, alert for any sound. Pressing his ear against the door, he heard papers rustling, a pen scratching on paper. One person from the sound of it. He tried the handle cautiously. It turned without resistance. In a swift motion, Kael pushed the door open, stepping inside with both revolvers raised. The sheriff looked up from the desk, his hand moving instinctively toward his gun, then freezing as he registered the 2 revolvers aimed at his chest. Don't, Kael advised quietly. The sheriff raised his hands. How did you? Your men were careless. Kael cut him off. Where is Crawley? Gone with the others. To the Miller homestead. The sheriff swallowed hard. You're too late to stop them. How many? 15, maybe 20 men, all armed. Kael gestured to the papers on the desk. What are you doing here? Guilt and defiance warred on the sheriff's face. What I should have done long ago. Looking for evidence. Evidence. The sheriff nodded toward a leather ledger. Crawley keeps records. Names, dates, figures. Girls brought in money, paid out. He's been trafficking for years, dozens of orphans, runaways, even kidnapped from passing wagons. He looked up, shame in his eyes. I knew about the brothel. Everyone does. But the children, I tried not to know about that part. Yet you helped him kill Thomas Miller. I didn't. The sheriff protested vehemently. That was Black Fox and Crawley's personal crew. I only heard about it after. At Kael's skeptical look, he added, I'm not asking you to believe me. I know what I've done and what I've failed to do. But those girls don't deserve what Crawley has planned. Kael studied the man, weighing his apparent remorse against his previous cowardice. Why the sudden attack of conscience? The sheriff looked away, his face contorting with pain. My sister's girl was taken 3 years ago. Disappeared from a settlement down south. Last month I saw her. Here, upstairs. His voice broke. She didn't even recognize me. Eyes empty, like she wasn't really there anymore. And yet you continued to wear that badge to serve the man who enslaved your own blood. I was afraid, the sheriff admitted, shoulders slumping in defeat. Crawley has connections throughout the territory. Men in government positions, judges, military officers. If I moved against him without ironclad proof. Now you have proof, Kael said, nodding toward the ledger. It's not enough. I need Thomas Miller's stolen documents and the ones that show the full network all the way to Washington. And I need the deed to Miller's land, the real one, not Crawley's forgery. Need to prove Miller was murdered specifically to seize his property and daughters. The sheriff looked up, urgency in his voice. The girls are in grave danger. Black Fox was sent ahead. He'll find them before Crawley and the others even reach the homestead. Kael made his decision. Keeping one revolver trained on the sheriff, he gathered the ledger and other incriminating documents. You're coming with me. Where? To make amends for your cowardice. Kael's voice was cold as winter steel. We ride for the Miller homestead. Now. 20 minutes later, they galloped out of town, and the sheriff on his own horse, Kael, mounted on a sturdy bay, requisitioned from the nearly empty livery. The moon had risen, casting the prairie in silvery light. In the distance, storm clouds gathered, promising rain before dawn. The homestead is northwest, about 5 miles beyond the creek crossing. the sheriff called as they rode. Defensible position backed against a rock face. Kael nodded. He knew the place from Thomas's letters, the natural limestone wall that protected the rear, the clear springs that made the land so valuable, the sturdy cabin Thomas had built with his own hands. As they approached the creek, Kael reined in, suddenly raising his hand in warning. He dismounted, examining the muddy bank in the moonlight. Tracks. Many horses crossed recently. He pointed to indentations in the mud. Your men riding hard. Can you tell how far ahead they are? Kael knelt, touching the disturbed earth. 2 hours, perhaps less. He moved along the bank, reading the sign with practiced ease. His fingers traced smaller hoofprints that diverged from the main trail, heading east rather than north toward the homestead. The girls changed direction. The sheriff frowned. Why wouldn't they go to the homestead? It's the safest place for miles. Because they are hunted and they are clever. Kael remounted. They knew Black Fox would expect them to run for familiar ground. So where are they headed? Kael studied the eastern horizon, where sharp cliffs rose against the night sky. There is a Lakota seasonal camp beyond Hawk Ridge. My people. But to reach it, they must pass through Wakang Bluff, Spirit Cliff Canyon. The sheriff's eyes widened with recognition. I've heard of that place. The soldiers call it Devil's Throat. They say strange things happen there. Men go in, never come out. Or come out changed. It is sacred ground. Kael confirmed grimly. Where the spirits of warriors who died unavenged gather. Their voices speak in the wind that moves through the stone passages. Only those with pure intentions may pass safely. And Crawley's men, the canyon will not welcome them. Kael gathered his reins. Follow the main trail. Catch up to Crawley. Delay him however you can. And you? I go after the girls and Black Fox. The sheriff hesitated, fear plain on his face. I can't face all those men alone. Then ride to Fort Chambers. It's closer than returning to town. Bring the cavalry. The army won't intervene in what they'll see as a private land dispute. Kael removed the ledger from his saddlebag and tossed it to the sheriff. Show them this. Tell them Vincent Crawley is trafficking white children to officials in Washington. That will motivate them, even if the lives of my people would not. The sheriff caught the book, his expression grim. They'll hang him for this. Justice comes in many forms. Kael replied. Now go. Without waiting for a response, Kael urged his mount eastward, following the fainter trail. The hoofprints told their story, horses tiring, moving more slowly, forced to a walk in places. The girls would be exhausted, cold, frightened. And Black Fox would be relentless. The temperature dropped as midnight approached, a bitter wind sweeping down from the north, bringing stinging sleet. The trail became harder to follow as frozen rain covered tracks. Twice, Kael lost the sign, completely forced to dismount and search in ever-widening circles until he found it again. The storm grew fiercer, lashing his face with ice particles that felt like tiny blades. In such weather, the girls would need shelter or risk freezing. He pushed his horse harder, scanning the darkened landscape for any sign of them. Near a stand of cottonwoods marking a seasonal stream now dry, Kael found what he sought, the remnants of a hasty camp. Disturbed earth, where horses had been tethered, cold ashes of a small, well-hidden fire. The girls had stopped here, but they had not been alone. Kneeling in the shelter of the trees, Kael found a small carved fetish, a wolf similar to the one he had given Lily, but older, the wood darkened with age. A Lakota charm for safe travels, left deliberately for him to find a message from whoever had joined the girls. Help had reached them. Renewed hope gave him energy. Remounting, Kael continued eastward, and the terrain growing more rugged as he approached Wakang Bluff, a maze of ravines, dry washes, and wind-carved stone formations that marked the boundary between open prairie and the sheltered lands where his people made their winter camps. The sleet turned to driving snow as the night deepened. Visibility dropped to mere yards, and the wind howling through the stone passages like the anguished cries of the unavenged dead. According to tribal elders, warriors who died with blood debts unpaid came to Wakayng Bluff, their spirits trapped between worlds, until justice was served. Before entering the sacred canyon, Kael dismounted and performed a brief ritual, drawing the symbol of the four directions in the snow, with the tip of his knife placing a pinch of tobacco at each cardinal point. "I seek passage to protect the innocent," he murmured in Lakota. "Guide my steps, ancestors. Hide us from those who come with darkness in their hearts." As if in answer, the wind shifted momentarily, creating a gap in the swirling snow. Through it, Kael glimpsed movement ahead, a horse riderless, limping badly. He approached cautiously. The animal shied away, but he spoke softly in Lakota calming words he had used since childhood, with frightened beasts. The saddle was white man's make, but decorated with Lakota beadwork, black foxes. Blood matted the animal's shoulder, but the wound was not deep. Something had spooked it badly enough to throw its rider. Kael tethered the horse to a stunted pine and continued on foot, leading his own exhausted mount. The ravine below would provide shelter from the storm, exactly where he would go if traveling with 6 cold children. He descended carefully, alert for ambush. The wind dropped as he entered the ravine, the high walls blocking the worst of the storm. Fresh tracks appeared in the thin layer of snow, small footprints, multiple sets, heading deeper into the maze of stone. Kael followed, moving silently, despite the difficult terrain. The ravine twisted and turned, narrowing in places to little more than a crack between towering walls of weathered sandstone. After nearly half a mile, it opened into a small box canyon, and there, huddled against the far wall beneath an overhanging ledge, were the Miller girls. Sam spotted him first, the revolver he had given her, coming up swiftly, her hand shockingly steady for a 10-year-old. Beside her, Ruth held a burning branch as both weapon and light. The younger girls pressed against the rock face behind them, Lily clutching her wooden wolf. "It's all right," Kael called softly. "It's me." "Stop there," Sam ordered, voice thin but determined. "Prove you're you." Before Kael could respond, a figure detached itself from the shadows to his right, a tall Lakota warrior face, painted for battle, a bloodied lance in his hand. "He is who he appears to be," the warrior said in heavily accented English. "I have been expecting him." "Running Elk." Kael greeted his old friend in Lakota. "You received my message." "I did." Running Elk switched to their native tongue. "Though I nearly arrived too late. Black Fox was already closing in when I found the girls." Black Fox. Sam spat the name. He tried to take Ruth, grabbed her right off her horse. Ruth's face was scratched and bruised, her dress torn at the shoulder. But her eyes burned with fierce pride as she took up the story. Running Elk came out of nowhere, hit him with his lance, knocked him off his horse. "Is he dead?" Kael asked Running Elk. The warrior shook his head. "Wounded only. He fled deeper into the ravines. We had no time to pursue, the storm was coming, and the little ones were already half frozen." "You saved their lives," Kael said with genuine gratitude. "It was my honor. You saved my son from the spotted fever 2 winters ago. The debt is repaid." Running Elk's face grew serious. "But there is something you should know, brother. When I confronted Black Fox, he carried this." He withdrew a folded paper from his pouch. It fell from his coat during our struggle. Kael took the document, opening it carefully. In the dim firelight, he could make out the territorial government's seal and several signatures. "This is a military order," he said slowly, authorizing the arrest of Red Cloud and the other peace chiefs. "It speaks of a final solution to the Lakota problem, to be executed next moon." Running Elk nodded grimly. "Black Fox carries many such papers. He serves those who would see our people destroyed entirely while pretending to help protect us. A traitor beyond even what I imagined. Kael murmured, tucking the paper into his shirt. This explains Thomas Miller's death. He must have discovered this plot through his territorial connections. Sam interrupted their conversation. If you could follow our trail, so can others. She said, fear creeping into her voice. Black Fox will come back with reinforcements. Crawley and his men rode for your homestead, Kael explained. They don't yet know you changed direction. But they'll figure it out eventually, Ruth said. And Black Fox is still out there. Yes. Kael saw no reason to lie to these children who had already seen too much of life's harshness. We must move as soon as the storm passes. Make for my people's camp beyond Hawk Ridge. Is it far? Martha, or was it Mary, asked, her small voice barely audible over the wind that still howled above the canyon. Half a day's ride. Running Elk answered. The snow will slow us, but it will also cover our tracks. The horses need rest, Sam pointed out practically. And Lily can't stay awake much longer. She nodded toward the youngest sister, fighting to keep her eyes open against the exhaustion consuming her small body. We will remain here until first light, Kael decided. Running Elk and I will stand watch. As the girls huddled together for warmth under blankets Running Elk had brought, Kael drew his fellow warrior aside. Black Fox knows these canyons as well as we do, he said in a low voice. He will not give up the hunt so easily. Running Elk nodded grimly. I wounded him, but not severely. He will have gone to ground somewhere nearby to wait out the storm, and then he will come for the girls, or more likely for you. Running Elk's face was grave in the faint firelight. There is something else you should know, brother. I found this hidden beneath the youngest one's saddle blanket. He produced a small leather pouch. The child said her father placed it there the night he died, told her to keep it safe at all costs. Kael opened the pouch carefully. Inside was a folded document and a small brass key. The document was a map of the Miller homestead with an X marked in the root cellar, accompanied by Thomas Miller's handwriting. Full evidence hidden here. Names, dates, letters proving the conspiracy. If I die, get this to Judge Harmon in Yankton, no one else. So the proof still exists, Kael murmured. And Crawley doesn't have it. Which makes these girls even more valuable to him, Running Elk observed. They are the key to finding Miller's hidden evidence. Kael tucked the pouch into his medicine bag. Get what rest you can, he told Running Elk. I will take first watch. As the hours of night crawled past, Kael maintained his vigil at the entrance to the small canyon. The storm gradually subsided, the wind dying to occasional gusts, the snow tapering to scattered flakes. The clouds broke shortly before dawn, revealing a sky ablaze with stars that seemed close enough to touch. In that hushed moment between night and day, Kael sensed rather than heard the approach of danger. A pebble dislodged from above the faintest scuff of leather against stone. Silently, he faded into the shadows, beside the narrow entrance, pressing himself against the canyon wall. Minutes passed. Then a figure appeared, moving with the stealth and precision of a hunting cougar. Black Fox, his face a mask of dried blood from the wound. Running Elk had inflicted his right arm, hanging awkwardly at his side. He carried a cavalry carbine in his left hand, a bowie knife clenched between his teeth. Kael waited until Black Fox had committed himself to the narrow passage, then stepped out behind him. War club raised, but some sixth sense warned the tracker. Black Fox whirled, dropping to one knee, bringing the carbine up with his good arm. The shot echoed deafeningly in the confined space. Kael felt the bullet's passage like a hot wind across his cheek as he closed the distance, swinging the war club in a short, vicious arc. Black Fox rolled aside, the club striking stone where his head had been a heartbeat before. The sound of the shot roused the camp. Running Elk appeared at the inner bend of the canyon lance, ready as Black Fox regained his feet knife, now in hand. For a moment, the three warriors faced each other in the gray pre-dawn light, a tableau of ancient enmities given flesh. "You should have stayed with the whites who own you," Kael said in Lakota, circling slowly. "You are outmatched here." Black Fox spat blood. "I own myself. Something you never understood, Bear Killer. Always the loyal dog to the tribal elders, even as they led our people to destruction. Our people are not destroyed," Running Elk countered. "We endure, we adapt. We die slowly instead of quickly." Black Fox sneered. "Living on government scraps, our land stolen, our ways forgotten." His eyes gleamed with a fanatic light. "But that will change when the Miller documents reach Washington. The scandal will topple senators, generals, even the governor. And in the chaos, Red Cloud will strike. The ghost dance will protect our warriors from bullets, just as the holy men have promised." Kael felt a chill that had nothing to do with the winter air. "You believe this, that magic will stop bullets. You will lead our people to slaughter. Better to die on our feet than live on our knees," Black Fox hissed. "You'll understand when the spirits rise from the earth to fight alongside us, when the white men are swept away like leaves in the autumn wind." "Madness," Kael said softly. "You've fallen to madness, old friend. And you've fallen to sentimentality," Black Fox retorted. "Protecting white children while your own people prepare for their last great battle." He lunged suddenly, his knife slashing at Kael's midsection. Kael danced back, using his war club to deflect the blade. Running Elk moved to flank Black Fox, but the tracker was too experienced to allow himself to be trapped. He retreated toward the canyon mouth, keeping both opponents in view. "Crawley will find you," he called. 20 armed men against 2 warriors and 6 brats. Even with your friend here, you cannot win." "Yet you came alone," Kael observed. "Why not bring Crawley's men with you?" A calculating look crossed Black Fox's face. "Perhaps I wanted these catches for myself. The eldest and the feisty one will fetch a fine price from certain buyers down south. Special taste, special prices." The words were meant to enrage, to provoke a reckless attack. Kael didn't fall for the ploy. "Or perhaps you are playing a more complex game," he suggested quietly. "Using both Crawley and the Miller documents to further your own plans with Red Cloud." A flicker in Black Fox's eyes confirmed Kael's suspicion. The tracker was manipulating all sides in this conflict for his own purposes. Purposes that would lead to bloodshed on a scale not seen since the Great Sioux Uprising. The standoff might have continued had not Sam Miller appeared suddenly behind Running Elk. Kael's revolver gripped in both hands. "You killed my pa," she said, her voice steady despite the tears streaming down her face. "You held him while that man cut him." Black Fox's attention shifted for just an instant. It was enough. Kael surged forward, crossing the distance in 2 long strides. Black Fox slashed desperately, opening a long cut along Kael's forearm, but the momentum carried both men to the ground. They rolled in the dirt and snow, each fighting for advantage. Black Fox was wounded and smaller, but driven by cold fury that lent him unnatural strength. His knife found Kael's side, slicing through buckskin to score flesh beneath. Kael grunted in pain, but managed to pin Black Fox's knife hand with his knee while delivering a stunning blow to the tracker's temple. Black Fox went limp momentarily. Kael seized the opportunity to wrestle the knife away, flinging it into darkness. As he did, Black Fox recovered enough to drive stiffened fingers into Kael's wound. Agony lanced through him, his grip loosening involuntarily. Black Fox bucked and twisted, nearly freeing himself. In desperation, Kael slammed his forehead into the bridge of the tracker's nose. Bone crunched, blood sprayed, and Black Fox howled in pain. Still he fought, clawing for Kael's eyes, fighting with the frenzy of a cornered wolf. Running Elk moved to assist, but there was no clear way to intervene without risking harm to his friend. Sam stood frozen, the revolver half raised, unable to fire, for fear of hitting Kael. With a mighty heave, Black Fox managed to throw Kael off. Both men scrambled to their feet, breathing heavily, blood dripping from multiple wounds. Black Fox's ruined nose and the wound on his head had painted his face crimson. Kael's side was a spreading stain of darkness against buckskin. "Enough," Running Elk said sharply in Lakota. "This solves nothing, brothers." "We were never brothers," Black Fox snarled. "Not truly." Before anyone could respond, the thunder of hoofbeats echoed from beyond the canyon mouth, many riders approaching fast. "Ah." Black Fox smiled through bloody teeth. "It seems Crawley has finally worked out your little deception. Time to decide, Bear Killer. Surrender the girls and the documents, and I will convince him to spare your life." "You know that's a lie," Kael replied evenly. "Crawley will kill us all, including you. You've outlived your usefulness to him." Uncertainty flickered in Black Fox's eyes. "He needs me. He needed you to find the girls. Now you have. What value do you have to him after that?" The hoofbeats grew louder now, accompanied by shouted commands as riders approached the canyon entrance. Running Elk moved to stand beside Kael, his expression grim. "We cannot fight so many in this narrow place. We would be trapped. Take the girls." Kael decided quickly. "There is another way out of this canyon, a narrow cleft at the far end. It leads to the high ridge. I discovered it when hunting with Thomas last summer." "No," Sam protested. "We won't leave you. You must," Kael told her firmly. "Your sisters need you, Sam. Your father entrusted you to my care, and I now entrust you to Running Elk. He will see you safely to the Lakota camp." "A fine, heroic gesture," Black Fox mocked. "But futile. Crawley will simply follow their trail once he's finished with you." Kael smiled grimly. "Not if he believes the girls are still here." To Running Elk he switched to Lakota. "Go now. Take only what you can carry swiftly. And take this." He pressed Thomas Miller's pouch into his friend's hand. "The evidence that can stop the coming war. Get it to Judge Harmon in Yankton if I don't survive." As Running Elk hurried back to rouse the girls, Kael turned his full attention to Black Fox. "Now, old friend, we must decide what to do with you." "You should kill me," Black Fox said matter-of-factly. "It's what I would do in your place." "I know." Kael retrieved his war club. "But perhaps there is another way, one that saves both our honor." Black Fox raised an eyebrow, intrigued despite himself. The riders were very close now, perhaps only minutes away. Behind Kael, Running Elk was leading the Miller girls toward the back of the canyon, the younger ones wide-eyed with fear, but moving quietly. Sam lingered still, clutching the revolver, torn between following her sisters and staying to fight. "Go, Sam," Kael commanded gently. "Your father is watching from the spirit world. Make him proud." The girl's chin trembled, but she straightened her shoulders. "I'll come back for you," she promised. "With help. I know you will. Now go." With a last, anguished look, Sam turned and ran after her sisters, disappearing into the shadows at the canyon's far end. Black Fox watched this exchange with undisguised contempt. Touching, the savage and the white girl. A pity neither of you will live to see another sunset? That remains to be determined, Kael replied. He stepped closer, lowering his voice. Crawley intends to kill you. You know too much. But you could yet walk away from this alive. How? Suspicion warred with interest in Black Fox's expression. Help me stall them. Make them believe the girls are still here, that they've barricaded themselves in a cave deeper in the canyon. Buy time for Running Elk to get clear with the children. And why would I do this? Because whatever else you have become, you were once Lakota, once a protector of the innocent. Kael held Black Fox's gaze steadily. And because I will give you my word that if we survive this day, I will not pursue you for your past crimes against our people. Black Fox's laugh held no humor. You think your forgiveness matters to me? I think living matters to you. And I think somewhere buried beneath hatred and bitterness, a spark of the warrior you once were remains. Kael paused, then played his final card. Besides, if Crawley finds and destroys Miller's evidence, your plans with Red Cloud collapse as well. You need time as much as I do. For a long moment, Black Fox was silent, his face unreadable. Then the first of Crawley's riders appeared at the canyon entrance, and the moment of decision was upon them. What's this? Vincent Crawley reined in at the sight of the two bloodied Lakota warriors standing together. Behind him, more riders crowded the narrow entrance, guns drawn. Black Fox, what the hell happened to you? Black Fox glanced at Kael, calculations visible in his eyes. Then he turned to Crawley. Ambushed me, he said shortly, gesturing to his wounds. But I tracked him here. The girls are deeper in the canyon, holed up in a cave. He was guarding the entrance. Crawley's eyes narrowed with suspicion. You look like you've been wrestling a bear, not standing guard. We fought, Black Fox admitted. He's stronger than he looks. And yet, you're both still standing. How convenient. Crawley signaled to his men. Secure them both. Then we'll find those brats ourselves. 4 men dismounted, advancing cautiously with guns trained on Kael and Black Fox. Kael didn't resist as rough hands seized him, twisting his arms behind his back. Black Fox similarly surrendered without struggle, though the look he shot Kael was impossible to interpret. Search them, Crawley ordered. Hands patted them down, relieving Kael of his remaining knife and Black Fox of a small derringer hidden in his boot. Now, Crawley smiled unpleasantly. Where are the Miller girls? As I said, Black Fox replied, in a cave system deeper in the canyon, a defensible position. The old warrior was planning to hold you here while someone else escaped with them through another exit. This much at least was the truth. Kael maintained an impassive expression, neither confirming nor denying. Crawley studied both men, his eyes cold. Jenkins, take 4 men and check the back of this canyon. Look for any other exits. The rest of you start searching for caves, crevices, anywhere children might hide. As the men scattered to carry out his orders, Crawley dismounted, approaching his prisoners. I must admit, I'm disappointed, Black Fox. I expected better from you. I found them, didn't I? Black Fox replied with a hint of defiance. You found him. Crawley nodded toward Kael. The girls seemed to be another matter. His hand shot out, suddenly grabbing Black Fox by the throat. Where are Miller's documents, the ones he stole from the territorial office? Black Fox's eyes widened with genuine surprise. Don't play games with me, Crawley hissed, tightening his grip. We know Miller had proof of the entire operation, names, dates, shipping manifests. Those papers are worth more than all the gold in the Black Hills. The girls would know. Black Fox gasped. Miller would have told them where he hid the evidence. Crawley released him with a shove. Then I need those girls alive and talking. He drew his revolver, pointing it at Black Fox's head. Last chance. Where exactly are they hiding? Black Fox glanced at Kael, a fleeting look that contained a surprising amount of resignation. He had known Kael realized that this moment of betrayal would come eventually. There's a narrow crevice about 50 yards in, Black Fox said finally. Easy to miss if you don't know where to look. Widens into a small chamber beyond. That's where they're hiding. Crawley smiled. See, cooperation makes everything so much easier. He turned to the men holding Black Fox. Take him with you. He can show you exactly where this crevice is. As they dragged Black Fox deeper into the canyon, Crawley turned his attention to Kael. As for you, my Lakota friend, I believe we have unfinished business regarding my brother. Your brother died a warrior's death, Kael said calmly. He fought bravely to the end. How very noble of you to say so. Crawley's voice dripped with sarcasm. I'm sure that's a great comfort to his widow and fatherless children. Before Kael could respond, gunfire erupted from deeper in the canyon, several shots in quick succession, followed by shouting. Crawley's head snapped around, his attention momentarily diverted. It was the opening Kael had been waiting for. With a swift, powerful motion, he drove his heel into the knee of the man, holding his right arm. As the man's grip loosened reflexively, Kael twisted free, delivering an elbow strike to the throat of the second captor. Both men went down, one clutching his shattered knee, the other gasping for breath through a crushed windpipe. Crawley turned back, bringing his revolver to bear, but Kael was already moving. He tackled the saloon owner with the full force of his substantial frame, both men crashing to the ground. The revolver discharged harmlessly into the air as they struggled. Crawley was no fighter. His strength lay in manipulation and threats, not physical confrontation. Kael quickly gained the upper hand, pinning the smaller man beneath him. He delivered a single precise blow to Crawley's temple, rendering him unconscious. Rising swiftly, Kael retrieved Crawley's revolver and the knife one of his captors had confiscated. More shots echoed from deeper in the canyon, accompanied by confused shouting. Whatever Black Fox was doing, it was creating effective chaos. Kael melted into the shadows along the canyon wall, working his way toward the source of the commotion. He found a scene of confusion, several of Crawley's men firing blindly into a narrow crevice in the canyon wall, others taking cover behind rocks, uncertain where the threat was coming from. Black Fox was nowhere to be seen. He shot Daniels. One man was shouting. The Indian shot him point blank when we reached the cave. Where did he go? In there, I think. After the girls. A harsh scream from deeper within the crevice galvanized the men. That's one of the girls, someone shouted. He's hurting them. Two men rushed forward toward the crevice entrance. Kael knew he needed to maintain the deception as long as possible. Taking careful aim with Crawley's revolver, he fired twice, not at the men, but at the canyon wall above the crevice. Stone fragments rained down, creating the impression of return fire. The men dove for cover, cursing. More shots were exchanged, the narrow canyon amplifying each report into deafening thunder. In the chaos, none of Crawley's men noticed the small group of figures making their way along a narrow ledge, high above, silhouetted briefly against the lightening sky, before disappearing over the ridge. Running Elk and the girls had found their escape route. Kael allowed himself a moment of satisfaction. Now he needed only to maintain the deception long enough for them to get clear, then find his own way out. But first, there was the matter of Black Fox. Moving silently along the canyon wall, Kael approached the crevice from a different angle. The narrow opening was barely wide enough for a man to slip through sideways. Beyond darkness swallowed the passage. The source of the scream remained a mystery. Kael squeezed through the opening, knife ready. The passage widened slightly as he advanced, allowing freer movement. Faint light filtered from somewhere ahead. Following it, Kael emerged into a small chamber with a high ceiling that opened to the sky through a natural chimney, an air shaft worn through by millennia of water action. In the dim light stood Black Fox, his back to the far wall. But he wasn't alone. Ruth Miller stood before him, her small body tense with fear, her eyes blazing with defiance. Black Fox held his knife to her throat. I wondered when you would join us, he said conversationally to Kael. The girl was lagging behind, too slow to keep up with the others. A shame. Let her go, Kael said quietly. She's just a child. She's merchandise, Black Fox corrected. Valuable merchandise. More valuable still because she knows what her father told her about those documents. My ticket to power among our people, or wealth among the whites, if the rebellion fails. I offered you a way out, Kael reminded him. Your honor for your life. Honor. Black Fox laughed bitterly. What has honor ever brought our people but death and suffering? No, I choose survival. His grip on Ruth tightened. This one alone will fetch enough to buy weapons for Red Cloud's warriors. That's what this has always been about, using Crawley's operation to fund our liberation. Ruth's eyes met Kael's wide with fear, but also with a child's desperate trust. She believed he would save her. Thomas Miller's daughter, to the core brave, even in the face of terror. You will not make it out of these canyons with her, Kael said, keeping his voice level. Crawley's men blocked the main exit. The back way is too difficult to find without a guide, and I will hunt you to the ends of the earth. Perhaps, Black Fox conceded, but I'm willing to take that chance. Outside the chamber, the shouts of Crawley's men grew closer. They had overcome their fear of ambush and were pushing deeper into the crevice. We're out of time, Black Fox said. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to hold them off while the girl and I slip out through that. He nodded toward a narrow fissure in the wall that Kael hadn't noticed, barely visible behind a projecting shelf of rock. A secondary passage. It rejoins the main canyon beyond where Crawley's men are positioned. And why would I do that? Because if you don't, I'll cut her throat right now. The knife pressed harder against Ruth's skin, drawing a thin line of blood. The girl whimpered, but remained admirably still. Kael weighed his options. He could rush Black Fox, might even reach him before the knife could do its deadly work, but it was a gamble he couldn't afford to take with Ruth's life. Yet allowing Black Fox to escape with the child was equally unthinkable. The decision was made for him as the first of Crawley's men squeezed into the chamber, gun raised. There they are, the man shouted, taking aim at Kael. Without hesitation, Kael threw his knife, the blade embedding itself in the gunman's shoulder. The man screamed, his shot going wild. Kael was on him in an instant, wresting away the gun and driving the man back into those following, creating a bottleneck in the narrow passage. In the confusion, Black Fox dragged Ruth toward the hidden fissure. Kael caught a glimpse of them from the corner of his eye as he fought to hold back the press of Crawley's men. More gunshots, bullets whining off stone walls. Someone's hat was blown from their head. Another man cried out as a ricochet found flesh. Fall back, someone shouted from the passage. There's too many of them in there. The unexpected cry confused the others. Good, let them believe they faced multiple defenders. Kael seized the moment to glance behind him. Black Fox and Ruth had vanished into the fissure. He had seconds to decide: continue holding off Crawley's men to buy time for Running Elk and the other girls, or pursue Black Fox and Ruth immediately. The choice was cruel, but clear. 5 lives against 1. Running Elk needed every minute Kael could give him to get clear with the majority of the girls. Ruth would have to wait a little longer for rescue. Kael retreated deeper into the chamber, positioning himself where the dim light from the air shaft cast his shadow large and menacing against the wall. When the next man peered cautiously into the chamber, he was presented with what appeared to be multiple silhouettes moving in the gloom. There's at least 3 of them, the man hissed to his companions. And they've got the high ground. More hesitation, more precious seconds gained. Kael used them to search for another exit, any way to follow Black Fox without abandoning his position. The chamber appeared solid stone on all sides, except for the main entrance. The air shaft above far too narrow for even a child to climb, and the fissure Black Fox had used. A plan formed in Kael's mind. Risky, desperate, but the only option available. He fired 2 more shots from the revolver, deliberately aiming to miss, but creating the impression of determined resistance. Then he shouted in his deepest voice, the sound echoing confusingly in the chamber. They're running the back way. Then, in a different tone, after them, don't let them escape. The ruse worked. Crawley's men, believing the defenders were fleeing, pushed forward into the chamber. As they milled about in confusion, discovering no enemies within, Kael slipped into the fissure Black Fox had taken and began moving as quickly as he dared through the narrow, twisting passage. The going was difficult. In places, the walls pressed so tightly against his shoulders that he had to exhale completely to squeeze through. Black Fox, smaller and more slightly built, would have had an easier time, particularly with a child in tow. The thought spurred Kael to greater effort. Each second that passed was another second Ruth remained in the hands of a man who viewed her only as a commodity to be sold. After what felt like an eternity, but was probably no more than 10 minutes, Kael felt fresh air on his face. The passage was widening, the oppressive weight of stone above lessening. Finally, he emerged into gray morning light. He found himself on a narrow ledge overlooking the main canyon, perhaps 30 feet above the floor. Below, Crawley's men had spilled out of the box canyon and were milling about in confusion, some searching the area, others tending to wounded companions. Of Crawley himself, there was no sign, still unconscious perhaps, or organizing the search from elsewhere. And there, moving swiftly along the canyon floor some distance away, were two figures, Black Fox and Ruth. The tracker had the girl by the wrist, dragging her when she couldn't keep up with his desperate pace. They were headed not toward the canyon mouth, where Crawley's men would surely spot them, but toward a narrow side channel that Kael knew eventually connected with Deer Creek, a route that could lead either to the Lakota winter camp or away toward the territorial road. Black Fox was making for his hidden horse, Kael realized. Like any good scout, he would have left a spare mount concealed somewhere accessible as a precaution. If he reached it with Ruth, they could be miles away before Kael could acquire a horse of his own. There was no time to climb down safely. Kael studied the terrain below, noted a slope of loose scree that might break his fall. Without hesitation, he leapt from the ledge. The landing was brutal. Despite his attempt to roll with the impact, pain shot up his right leg as he tumbled down the scree slope in a shower of stones and dust. At the bottom, he lay momentarily stunned, fighting to retain consciousness as waves of agony pulsed from what was surely a broken ankle. The sound of his fall had not gone unnoticed. Shouts went up from some of Crawley's men, and bullets kicked up dirt near Kael's position. Using the scattered boulders at the canyon's edge as cover, he dragged himself toward the side channel Black Fox had entered. Ruth's scream galvanized him. Pain forgotten, he forced himself to his feet and half ran, half limped into the narrow passage. Around a bend out of sight of the main canyon, he found them. Black Fox had Ruth pinned against the canyon wall, his knife at her throat again. "Not another step," he warned. "I'll do it this time. I swear I will." Kael halted, breathing heavily, his weight on his left leg. "You won't kill her," he said with more confidence than he felt. "She's worth nothing to you dead. She's worth nothing to me if I'm captured either," Black Fox countered. "Maybe I prefer to spite you with her blood than see her returned safely." "Is that what you've become?" Kael asked quietly. "A murderer of children." Black Fox's eyes flickered with something doubt, remorse, a remnant of the man he had once been. Ruth sensed the momentary distraction and sank her teeth into the hand that held her. Black Fox cursed his grip, loosening just enough for the girl to twist free. "Run, Ruth," Kael shouted. The girl bolted toward him as Black Fox lunged after her. Kael met the charge head-on, despite his injured leg catching Black Fox in a wrestler's hold. Both men crashed to the ground. Ruth hesitated, watching the struggle with wide eyes. "Go!" Kael commanded through gritted teeth as he fought to subdue the desperate tracker. "Follow the canyon back. Find your sisters." This time she obeyed, sprinting away with the boundless energy of a frightened child. Black Fox snarled in frustration, redoubling his efforts to break free. He drove an elbow into Kael's broken ankle, causing such excruciating pain that Kael's vision went white around the edges. Using the momentary advantage, Black Fox slipped from Kael's weakened grasp. But instead of pursuing Ruth, he scrambled up the canyon wall with the agility of a mountain goat seeking the higher path. This isn't over, bear killer. He called down, his face twisted with hatred. The ghost dance will come. Red cloud will lead our people to victory with or without Miller's proof. The spirits of our ancestors will rise from the earth, and the white man's bullets will turn to water. With that, he disappeared over the ridge. Kael struggled to his feet, but his injured ankle wouldn't support his weight. He could only watch as Black Fox escaped, carrying with him the dangerous fanaticism that could lead hundreds of Lakota warriors to their deaths against army rifles. Gritting his teeth against the pain, Kael began moving as quickly as he could after Ruth. Each step was agony, but he forced himself forward, using the canyon wall for support when necessary. The passage began to widen as it approached its junction with the main canyon. Kael could hear voices ahead, Crawley's men searching methodically. He rounded a final bend to see Ruth frozen in the middle of the passage, halfway between him and the main canyon. Beyond her, visible in the morning light that now fully illuminated the landscape, stood Vincent Crawley himself, surrounded by several of his men. The saloon owner's face was bruised from their earlier confrontation, his expression a mask of cold fury. "Well, well," Crawley said, his voice carrying clearly in the still air. "Look who's decided to join us. Come here, girl, now." Ruth looked back at Kael, torn between two fears. He nodded encouragingly, despite knowing the danger. "It's all right, Ruth," he called. "I'm right behind you." The girl's face set in determined lines. Instead of moving toward either Crawley or Kael, she darted sideways, scrambling up a jumble of fallen rocks that offered a possible escape route to the canyon rim. "Get her," Crawley barked. Two men moved to intercept, but Ruth was small, quick, and motivated by primal terror. She squeezed through gaps in the rocks too narrow for grown men to follow, climbing higher with each second. Crawley raised his rifle. "Last chance, girl, stop right there." Kael's heart froze. "No," he shouted. "Crawley, she's worth nothing to you dead." The saloon owner hesitated, his finger on the trigger. In that moment of indecision, a gunshot rang out, but not from Crawley's rifle. One of his men pitched forward, a red stain blossoming on his back. More shots followed in quick succession. Crawley and his remaining men dove for cover as bullets struck the canyon walls around them. From his position, Kael could see what Crawley could not, figures moving along the canyon rim above, taking careful aim at the men below. Through the dust and confusion, he caught a glimpse of a cavalry uniform, then another. The sheriff had kept his word and brought help from Fort Chambers, but something was wrong. The soldiers weren't just firing at Crawley's men, they were advancing in a coordinated attack pattern, their movements too precise for a hastily assembled rescue party. This was a full military operation, planned and executed with tactical precision. The battle was brief but intense. Caught in the open and under fire from above, Crawley's men stood little chance. Some threw down their weapons immediately, others tried to return fire but were quickly picked off by the well-positioned soldiers. Crawley himself made a desperate break toward his horse, only to be cut down by multiple shots before he'd gone a dozen yards. He fell face first into the dust, his fine suit stained with the final evidence of his mortality. As the shooting subsided, Kael began moving toward Ruth's position, still searching for the girl among the rocks. He found her huddled behind a boulder, shaking but unhurt. "It's over," he told her gently. "The soldiers have come. You're safe now." Ruth looked up at him with tear-filled eyes. "Sam?" she asked. "The others safe too, I believe. With Running Elk?" The girl's composure finally broke. She threw herself into Kael's arms, sobbing with the release of terror too long contained. He held her awkwardly, unused to offering comfort to white children, but understanding the universal need for reassurance after trauma. "Bear killer," a familiar voice called. Kael looked up to see the sheriff picking his way down a steep path from the canyon rim, followed by a cavalry officer and several soldiers. "I kept my word," the sheriff said as he approached. "Brought Captain Reynolds and his men from Fort Chambers." "You showed the ledger?" Kael asked. The sheriff nodded grimly. "The captain has daughters of his own. He didn't need much convincing once he saw what Crawley was involved in." Captain Reynolds, a weathered man with a close-cropped gray beard, stepped forward. "But that's not all," he added solemnly. "The documents your friend here provided revealed something much larger than just Crawley's local operation." "What do you mean?" Kael asked, still holding the trembling Ruth. Reynolds glanced at the sheriff, who nodded as if giving permission to continue. Crawley wasn't just trafficking girls on his own. He was part of a network reaching all the way to Washington. Names in that ledger include a territorial judge, 2 state senators, and a general. "So this wasn't just about rescuing 6 orphan girls," Kael said, understanding dawning. "No," Reynolds admitted. Though that would have been reason enough. Orders came directly from the War Department once the names in that ledger were telegraphed. "Eliminate the entire operation with extreme prejudice," were the exact words. So that explained the precision of the military attack. This wasn't an improvised rescue mission, but a calculated strike to eliminate a political liability. Justice and compassion had played their parts, but politics and self-preservation had sealed Crawley's fate. "But there's more," the sheriff added, his voice dropping. "Miller had evidence of something even worse, a plan to provoke the Lakota into war, specifically targeting Red Cloud and the peace chiefs. The conspiracy goes beyond trafficking. They want the gold in the Black Hills, and the peace treaty is in their way." "Black Fox mentioned the ghost dance," Kael said. "He believes it will make warriors invulnerable to bullets." Reynolds shook his head grimly. "That's exactly what these conspirators are counting on. They've been secretly encouraging those beliefs, knowing it will lead to armed resistance that gives them the excuse they need for a final campaign against the Sioux." The full scope of the conspiracy now became clear to Kael, not just the trafficking of innocent girls, but the deliberate manipulation of desperate people's spiritual beliefs to engineer their destruction. It was diabolical in its calculated cruelty. "Where will you take the girls now?" Kael asked the question that mattered most to him. Captain Reynolds studied him thoughtfully. "That's somewhat complicated. Under normal circumstances, orphans would be sent east on the next orphan train. But given the exceptional nature of this situation..." He trailed off and then continued with surprising directness. "Miller's will named you as guardian for his children. It was properly filed with the land office in Yankton, but such an arrangement would never be recognized." Kael said the bitter reality of frontier justice clear to him. A Lakota guardian for white children. Under normal circumstances, no, Reynolds agreed. But these are hardly normal circumstances. The territorial governor is extremely motivated to avoid further scandal. The last thing he needs is more attention drawn to this affair by a public guardianship dispute involving the orphan daughters of a murdered whistleblower. Hope stirred in Kael's heart, but he kept his expression neutral. "What are you suggesting, Captain?" "A compromise. Temporary guardianship for 6 months, during which time you would reside with the girls at Miller's homestead. Regular checks by military patrols from Fort Chambers. At the end of that period, a review by territorial authorities to determine permanent arrangements." It was more than Kael had dared hope for, a chance at least to fulfill his blood oath to Thomas, to keep the girls together as their father had wished. But he needed to be certain of one thing. "And if after 6 months the authorities decide the girls should go elsewhere," Reynolds met his gaze directly, "then they will still consider Miller's wishes that the girls remain together, regardless of where they're placed." He added more softly, "I give you my word on that, bear killer. Those children will not be separated." "Thank you," Kael said, simply the words inadequate to express the weight of gratitude he felt. As soldiers helped Kael onto a horse, Ruth still clinging to his side, he scanned the canyon rims and surrounding terrain. Of Black Fox there was no sign. The tracker had vanished into the vastness of the Dakota Territory, wounded, but alive, carrying his hatred and dangerous ideologies with him. A problem for another day. For now, the immediate danger had passed. Ruth was safe. Her sisters were safe. Crawley's operation was exposed and would be dismantled by federal authorities. It was enough. It had to be enough. The journey to Fort Chambers passed in a haze of pain for Kael. His broken ankle had swollen to twice its normal size, and the jolting of the horse sent spikes of agony up his leg, despite the soldier's attempts to fashion a stirrup sling to immobilize it. Ruth refused to be separated from him, riding before him on the saddle, her small hands clutching his arm as if afraid he might disappear. At the fort, Captain Reynolds personally escorted Kael to the infirmary, while he took charge of Ruth, promising she would be well cared for until her sisters could be located. The army surgeon was matter-of-fact treating Kael's broken ankle with professional efficiency. "Lucky break," the surgeon commented as he set the bone. "Clean. 6 weeks and you'll walk again." Kael accepted this stoically, though the thought of being immobilized for weeks was troubling. He needed to ensure the Miller girls were safely settled to warn his people about Black Fox's connection to Red Cloud and the potential for renewed conflict. As if sensing his thoughts, Captain Reynolds appeared once the surgeon had finished. "A patrol has located your friend Running Elk and the other girls," he informed Kael. "They're being escorted here as we speak. Should arrive by nightfall." "Thank you," Kael said simply. Reynolds nodded, then hesitated. "There's something else you should know. When my men searched Crawley's body, they found this." He held out a folded document. "It appears to be the original deed to the Miller homestead. I thought you should have it for the girls." Kael accepted the document with surprise. "Thank you," he said again with deeper feeling. "Rest now," Reynolds advised. "Tomorrow will bring challenges enough." Those words proved prophetic. The patrol returned with the 5 missing Miller girls and Running Elk, all weary but unharmed. Their reunion with Ruth was both joyous and heart-wrenching. 6 young souls clinging to each other with the fierce desperation of those who had faced death and loss too many times. Running Elk pulled Kael aside after ensuring the girls were settled. "Black Fox escaped," he reported quietly. "And he wasn't alone. I spotted him meeting with 2 men in army uniforms, far from the main force officers by their insignia." "The conspiracy reaches deeper than we thought," Kael murmured. "Even here." "Yes. Which is why I gave the Miller documents to Judge Harmon directly," Running Elk revealed. "His son rides with our hunting party sometimes. I trust him." "Good," Kael said, relieved. At least that crucial evidence was beyond the reach of those who would destroy it. "And our people, I've sent warning about Black Fox and his false promises about the ghost dance. Whether the chiefs believe it." Running Elk shrugged. "Many are desperate enough to believe any hope, even false hope." Sam approached after ensuring her sisters were settled, her young face solemn beyond her years. "They say we might be allowed to stay with you," she said without preamble. "At Pa's homestead. Is it true?" "No, for 6 months," Kael confirmed. "After that, the territorial authorities will decide what happens next." The girl nodded, absorbing this, with the practicality that had helped her survive thus far. 6 months is long enough," she observed with surprising confidence. "Long enough for them to see you're the best guardian we could have." Kael smiled slightly at her optimism. "Perhaps. But whatever happens, Sam, I promise you this: you and your sisters will remain together. I swore that to your father, and I will keep that oath, even if it means—" He hesitated, reluctant to voice the possibility. "Even if it means finding us another guardian who isn't Indian." Sam finished for him, her directness, startling but refreshing. "Someone white who'll satisfy the courts, if necessary," Kael acknowledged. "But only one who would take all 6 of you and treat you with kindness." Sam considered this, then nodded again. "Fair enough. But first, we try it your way." Her expression softened slightly. "Pa trusted you more than anyone. Said you were the only man he ever met who was exactly what he appeared to be. No masks, no lies." Coming from Thomas Miller's daughter, this was high praise indeed. Kael inclined his head, accepting the compliment with quiet dignity. "There's something else," Sam added, reaching into her pocket. "Pa left this for you." She handed him a folded paper slightly charred at one edge, where it had apparently been too close to flame. "I kept it safe." Kael took the letter carefully. In the dim light, Thomas's handwriting was difficult to make out, but read it he did, feeling his friend's presence in each carefully formed letter. "My brother in all but blood," the letter began. "If you are reading this, then my fears have been realized, and I am gone from this world. I have made my will and filed it properly with the land office in Yankton. The homestead belongs to my girls, with you named as their guardian should anything happen to me. I know what I ask is immense. 6 children are no small responsibility for any man, let alone one whose own family has been taken from him. But I have no other kin, and no one I trust more than you. They will face prejudice, my friend, from both your people and mine. The world is not kind to those who cross the boundaries others have drawn. But you taught me that bridges can be built, that friendship can transcend the artificial divisions of race and background. You're their shield now, as you were mine on that day by the Medicine River, when you had every reason to let me die, but chose mercy instead. Watch over them. Teach them to be strong, but also kind. Help them remember me, not with bitterness, but with love. There is one more thing you should know. The documents I've hidden reveal not just the trafficking network, but a deliberate plan to provoke war with the Lakota. Your people are being manipulated, brother. The ghost dance is being secretly encouraged by those who want conflict. They mean to use your people's desperation against them. Your brother always, Thomas." Kael folded the letter carefully when he had finished tucking it into his medicine pouch. Beside him, Sam waited patiently, her young face solemn in the lamplight. "Your father was a good man," Kael said finally. "The best I have known among your people." "He said the same about you," Sam replied simply. The days that followed brought a flurry of activity. Captain Reynolds arranged transport to the Miller homestead once Kael's ankle was deemed stable enough for travel. The military provided supplies, ensuring the family would have enough to last until Kael was mobile enough to hunt and work the land. The homestead itself showed signs of hasty searching doors, hanging open belongings scattered, but was otherwise intact. The girls set about creating order from chaos with a determination that spoke volumes about their resilience. On their first night in the cabin, after the younger girls had been put to bed on straw mattresses, they had retrieved and cleaned. Kael sat on the small porch, watching the stars emerge. The pain in his ankle was a dull throb, a constant reminder of all that had happened, yet strangely welcome as a counterpoint to the deeper responsibility he now carried. 6 girls ranging from 4 to 10 years old, each bearing emotional scars from their ordeal. A hostile territory whose laws and customs viewed him with suspicion and contempt. A homestead to maintain through the harsh Dakota winter. And somewhere out there, Black Fox roamed free, a dangerous loose end, with connections to a conspiracy that reached to the highest levels of government. The tracker's fanatical belief in the ghost dance troubled Kael deeply. If such spiritual beliefs continued to spread among his people, promising supernatural deliverance from white oppression, it could only end in bloodshed and further suffering for the Lakota. Yet beneath these burdens, Kael felt something he had not experienced since losing his own family purpose. Not merely the warrior's purpose of fighting with honor, but the deeper purpose of nurturing life, of helping something grow against all odds. Sam joined him on the porch, carrying 2 steaming mugs. "It's just water with a little coffee," she apologized. "All we could find until we get to town." Kael accepted the mug gratefully. It is more than enough." For a time they sat in companionable silence, each lost in private thoughts. Then Sam spoke, her voice soft in the darkness. "When I was hiding with Running Elk and the others waiting to see if you'd come after us, he told me something. He said when you and Pa became blood brothers, you made your oath under Falling Star Tree." Kael turned to her, surprised. "Yes. The cottonwood at Medicine River Crossing. We call it Falling Star because long ago our ancestors saw a star fall from the sky near that spot. Its spirit entered the tree, making it sacred. Running Elk said that oaths made under that tree cannot be broken, even by death." Sam's eyes gleamed in the starlight. "He said that when you became my father's brother, there you also became our uncle in the Lakota way. That we're your family now, by the oldest laws." "That is true," Kael acknowledged, touched by her understanding. "In my tradition, the bond between uncle and sister's children is especially sacred. The uncle is teacher-protector guide into adulthood." Sam nodded, satisfied. "Then that's what you are to us. No matter what the territorial courts say," as if to seal this declaration, a shooting star blazed across the heavens, a brilliant streak of light that momentarily outshone all others. Both Kael and Sam watched it in silence, each finding their own meaning in its passage. "Pa would say that's him checking on us," Sam said finally, a catch in her voice. "My people would agree," Kael replied gently. "The spirits of those who loved us can take many forms to show they still watch over us." Sam wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. "I'm glad you're here." She whispered the simple words containing depths of feeling her 10-year-old vocabulary couldn't otherwise express. "We all are. As am I, little one." Kael answered, his throat tight with unexpected emotion. "As am I." The journey ahead would not be easy. There would be challenges, setbacks, moments when societal disapproval might seem too heavy to bear. The territorial court might yet decide 6 months hence that the Miller girls belonged elsewhere. The conspiracy that had killed Thomas Miller might reach out again, seeking to silence his daughters or retrieve the damning evidence now in Judge Harmon's hands. Black Fox might return, driven by bitterness and whatever dark purpose connected him to the men who sought war with the Lakota. But for this moment, under the vast Dakota sky, they were simply family, not Miller girls and Lakota warrior, not white and Indian, not temporary or permanent, just 6 young souls and one older one bound together by choice, rather than blood, by love, rather than law. That night, as the girls slept safely for the first time in many days, Kael performed a ritual he had not observed since the loss of his wife and son. Taking sage and sweetgrass from his medicine pouch, he created a small smudge, letting the sacred smoke purify the 4 directions of the cabin. Over each sleeping child, he whispered an ancient Lakota blessing, asking the spirits to grant them strength, wisdom, and healing. Last, he limped outside and looked up at the star-filled sky, feeling the presence of Thomas Miller as surely as if his blood brother stood beside him. "I will not fail them," he promised softly. "Or you." The wind stirred the branches of a nearby pine, creating a sound like gentle laughter. And for the first time since receiving news of Thomas's death, Kael felt peace settle over his spirit, not the warrior's resignation to fate, but the father's determination to forge a better future from the ashes of tragedy. He thought of the Falling Star Tree, where his brotherhood with Thomas had begun, how that sacred cottonwood had witnessed their blood oath, and now stood guardian over the symbolic grave he had dug. The tree represented something crucial, that neither Crawley's greed nor Black Fox's bitterness could destroy the possibility of connection across boundaries of mercy, instead of vengeance of family, formed not by accident of birth, but by deliberate choice. What had begun as a blood oath of protection had transformed into something far more profound, a second chance at fatherhood, at family, at healing, not just for 6 orphaned girls, but for his own wounded heart as well. And that perhaps was the greatest twist of all. in this bitter tale of the Dakota Territory. That from the darkest acts of human cruelty could emerge the purest expressions of human compassion. That a Lakota warrior and 6 white girls could, through their unlikely bond, begin to bridge the savage divisions that had claimed so many lives on both sides of an arbitrary line drawn across the blood-soaked prairie. As Kael looked back at the cabin, now his home as much as theirs, he silently vowed that whatever trials lay ahead, whatever prejudice or danger they might face, he would ensure these children grew up knowing both strength and kindness, both their father's heritage and the wisdom of his people. For in that balance lay not just their future, but perhaps a small hope for the wounded land itself, a demonstration that boundaries existed to be crossed, that understanding could grow even in the most barren soil, that love could flourish in the shadow of hate. That was the legacy Thomas Miller had entrusted to him. And Kael Bear Killer, last warrior of his band, would honor it until his dying breath.